Hello and welcome back to the From the Nosebleeds podcast, season 3, episode 10. We've finally hit that double-digit mark in season 3. I'm Thomas Pocrnic, as always, joined alongside Thomas Coburn and, of course, producer Paolo Gismondi. We've hit 9 days away now, I think, with the NFL draft, so it's definitely exciting times. Coburn, how are you?
Pretty good. Yeah, I feel like the draft has kind of snuck up on us a bit. I felt like it was 3 weeks ago. Like 4 days ago.
I feel like about 2 weeks ago, it felt like it was 3 weeks ago. Is that what you're trying to say?
Oh, a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I'm being smart to start off the show today. I mean, I think you've been complaining about, we're in that awkward episode part where it's like we can't really key in on the draft all the way. You had the brilliant idea of doing a Q&A this week on this week's show. But
we forgot.
We completely dropped the ball on that one. We just Nelson Aguilar'd our way into forgetting to do that. So no Q&A today, but we still have a pretty exciting episode, I think, planned. But we'll start off as always, like we do in the off season. What did you do on your weekend? Get right into it.
As you were, we started recording, I was like, okay, what did I do this weekend? Because I know we're going to talk about it. And I can't remember what I did, but I did try to watch the Formula One race. This has slowly become a Formula One podcast. I can't get into it. Paulo mentioned before the show that I need to watch the documentary on Netflix before I can really enjoy it. I don't know if that's true. Right now, though, the verdict is it's not for me. I'm not having too much fun watching it.
There's a lot to unpack there. There's just so much to unpack there. Couple quick notes. First of all, Paulo he's the biggest advocate for this Netflix documentary that you need to watch it. First of all, I put him on that, and there's evidence on this show a couple weeks ago. And if you ask Paulo, he will deny it. So I think that's a big problem, first of all. But I also watched the race. I thought it was absolutely gripping, which I think is probably like a European way of describing something that was really good. I really enjoyed it. I have also watched the Netflix documentary, or I'm in the middle of it right now. So maybe that's why I've really gotten into it as of late. But yeah, you're right. It's slowly becoming a Formula One podcast. Just to say a little bit of football of what I did on the weekend, I actually had the privilege of hosting a live stream on the Catch The Blitz Instagram. I think it was on Friday night with the folks over there from the Juke podcast. That's Dr. Jen Welter, the first female coach in NFL history. And of course, Mitch Milani from the Bottom Line View. So shout out to them. If you're looking for a new podcast, if you're sick of us, talking nonsense every Tuesday, head over and check them out. They have a ton of great interviews. And I just want to say it was amazing to hear, of course, Dr. Jen Welter being a former coach in the NFL, like how much knowledge she truly has. It was incredible. So I had a lot of fun doing that. And then, of course, it was the Formula One race on the weekend.
So are you saying that the people that work in the NFL know more than us? Is that what you're trying to push that narrative?
There was a lot to unpack from what I said. So maybe that's one of the things. But yeah, it was a lot of fun and check them out. Don't check them out right now. Wait till the episode's over because of course we don't want to lose your view. But no, they're a great podcast and I had a lot of fun with them. Is that it for your little weekend spiel?
Yeah, I did not. Oh, I watched the Blue Jays game. There you go. They're struggling right now. It's not.
Yeah, they are.
It's not too hot, but they'll get it going.
I see you removed your Blue Jays hat this week. I don't know if that's because you're completely giving up on the team, but that's what I'm gonna take that
narrative. That's the narrative. There you go.
Run with it. But we talked about how this is turning into a Formula One podcast. But I think this week there's another European sport that we need to acknowledge, and that's also football. That's what they call it across the pond. If you haven't heard, there has been huge news coming out of Europe that essentially the biggest clubs, that's the word for teams over there, are forming a new league, the European Super League. It's essentially just a buy-in and there's no relegation or anything. You pretty much, you're a big club, you get in and that's it. The smaller clubs who have a chance to get into now the Champions League through performance are pretty much exempt from this league. They can't get in even if they were good enough simply because they're not part of this. They don't have the capital to get in. So all football or soccer fans are completely outraged. But we had the wonderful idea of taking an NFL spin on this. I'd love for you to elaborate, Coburn.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know how many teams are actually going to be in the Super League or if it's even going to happen, but I think we decided on 12.
Well, right now there's 12 founding members.
There you go.
So they're the founders. They're just better than everyone else. I think it's going to be 20 teams, but yes, we're going with the 12 founding members.
So I guess we're picking who would be the 12 founding teams in the NFL. If the NFL, well, I guess it wouldn't be the NFL creating the Super League. It would just be owners creating a different league that's not even called the NFL. But you understand what I'm trying to say. So we're going to do the 12 teams. By the way, I think this is the most fun I've had preparing for a segment. Picking the 12 teams that would be in a football Super League, by far the most fun and probably the most difficult.
So I don't know your criteria of how you really did this, but I want to communicate that it's not, well, for me, how I approach it, it's not the 12 best teams in the league. It's absolutely not that. How soccer is, it's sort of like, it's just the richest teams and everyone's just completely turning on. I'm trying to think of a word to describe these teams and these owners that producer Paolo wouldn't have to censor or bleep out later on, because it's just like, I feel like cheeky is maybe the safest thing. Arrogant, greedy. Like, it's just like, are you kidding? You think you're better than everyone else? How dare you? You want to create this exclusive league where, only the big boys with the money can participate. So I don't know we're going to explain both of our picks. So yes, you're right. I had a lot of fun doing it as well. Do you want to go 12 and 12? Maybe 6 and 6. I don't know. If we go 1 and 1, I feel like we could have quite a bit of overlap.
That's what I was thinking. So I think let's just say I say a team.
Yeah.
And I'll do like the obvious ones first that you should have as well.
Okay.
I think but before we actually continue, I am anti Super League in soccer. I don't really care about soccer, but I am strictly anti Super League. I do not support this. I just want to make that clear.
I'm incredibly anti-Super League. I'm actually a soccer fan. I don't know if we've talked about this. I feel like maybe once or twice.
A bit, yeah.
I'm a big Arsenal fan in soccer or football, as they call it. And Arsenal is, of course, one of the teams in the Super League. And quite frankly, they have zero business being there because they're terrible. They can't even compete in their own domestic league in England. I think they're 9th or 10th place right now. So they're one of the teams where it's like, it to me, it's disgusting that they've gone and done this. They just think they're better than everyone else. It's not the whole club. It's just the owners up top. But without further ado, let's get into the NFL Super League.
And just so you know, I think this is a good format. I'll do 6. You do 6. And then I'll do 6, and then you'll do, because there should be some differences.
Some overlaps. So,
okay. So I'll try to get the obvious ones. So let's start with the team that would initiate the Super League. Who would start the Super League?
Can I give my prediction?
Go ahead, please.
So I honestly think the Cowboys would start the Super League.
Absolutely. Jerry Jones would be the ringleader. He would think this is a fantastic idea. Anything to make the most money and put my team on a pedestal. So definitely, I think the number one team that would be in this would be the Dallas Cowboys, and I think they would start it.
The fact that they call themselves America's team is like, they have to be the ringleaders for this Super League idea. They're saying we generate money for the entire league, so we're just going to keep it for ourselves and go create this. So I'm glad we've already agreed on that.
Okay, so that's team number one. That's both one of our 12. The next, you should probably have them too. I'm going to say the Green Bay Packers. Probably one of them. Oh, you don't have them?
No.
You don't?
No, and I can tell you why.
Okay, well, let me say why I do have them first. Okay, ready? Most historic organization, or one of the most historic, right? They're in that, top tier. They've always been competitive. Most NFL championships, they're winning NFL championships before the Super Bowl was a thing. To me, they have to be there. If you're talking about the Super League of the NFL, the Green Bay Packers, 100%, most historic, one of the most successful of all time. Green Bay Packers, 100%.
Okay, so I understand the points. And honestly, the fact that they're historic, I used that historic criteria for a lot of other franchises that I put in the Super League. However, there's one team, actually there's two really, really top teams in Europe in the actual Super League that aren't participating. And one of them is Bayern Munich. and they won the Champions League a year ago. And the reason they're not participating in the Super League is because the majority ownership of Bayern Munich is owned by the fans. The Green Bay Packers have no owner. So I don't know, maybe I'm getting a little too technical, but I feel like the fact that they're owned by fans would never allow this. That is why I didn't put them in the Super League. But if we were, going by that historic criteria, I definitely agree that they're a team, but continue.
Yeah, I did think about that, and you're right. But I put them there because when you just think of football, that's one of the couple teams that you think of. Mm-hmm. The next team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. You could probably find Steelers fans in all across Europe. Steelers fans are everywhere. They every game they play on the road, there's so many fans that show up with the terrible towels. One of the best fan bases, I think most people can agree. And once again, just like the Green Bay Packers, storied success, have always been competitive, dominated their division for years. Obviously, Baltimore's played well in that division, but you know what I'm saying. To me, the Steelers are another one of those teams that's just, they have to be on the list. They're, once again, you think of football, you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I have the Steelers in my Super League too. Quick little, I guess, story. My first ever NFL game that I went to in the United States was the Dolphins against the Packers in Miami. And I think there were more Steelers fans there than there were Dolphins, and the Steelers weren't even playing, and it was a Dolphins home game. It's just like they're everywhere. They're a crazy fan base. If you look at, I think it was a couple of years ago, they played the Chargers on Sunday Night Football in LA. And it was like, I know it's the Chargers, but it was completely packed with Steelers fans. So yeah, the Steelers have to be in there.
That's why you wore the yellow shirt.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mustard.
All right. So I'm at, that was the third team I said, I believe, right?
Yes. Three down, 9 to go.
All right. So I think another fairly obvious one, I think you will have them too. I'm going to go the New York Giants. Mm-hmm. I think you have to have a team from New York. And then I just picked a team who has had the most recent success and is frankly just much better at running their whole organization. I wasn't going to take to be honest, you could argue that 2 of the 12 could be the Jets and the Giants. I think that's a legitimate argument, but I just went with one. And so I picked the Giants.
Yeah. I like you said, New York, huge market. They've had some success. They dethroned the Patriots twice. So, and I know last year wasn't great, but things are definitely looking up. So I had the Giants in mind as well.
Okay. Team number 5. Yes. Team number 5. I went with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, obviously it is, I guess, one of the more historic organizations. They've been around a while, but it's more due to the fact that they're the powerhouse now. And I think that if you're creating a Super League, it's all about making money. And what is one of the teams that's making the most money right now? And it's the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. I just picked them. They're going to be contending for Super Bowls for the next 10 years minimum. So I picked the Chiefs.
Interesting. I don't have the Chiefs on my list.
Okay.
Small market there in Kansas City. The team's been in the family for a long time, went with their ownership. When you have Mahomes, the Super League's knocking on Kansas City's door. I just feel like the way that they go about their business there in Kansas City, the owners sort of, he's going to turn them down and say, no, we're not going there.
The reason I picked them, I actually feel like, I don't know too much about soccer, but tell me if I'm on the right path. Liverpool is a historic organization, right?
Yes.
But were they considered on that top tier level up until like the last 5-6 years?
So they were very, very dominant early on in long time ago, but the Premier League actually in, English football reshuffled in the 90s. And then that became, before I think it was just called English football, then that started the Premier League, and Liverpool hadn't won a Premier League until last season. There were definitely some years where they were pretty good. There were some years where they were not so great and outside that, big four at least. So yeah, that's an interesting comparison because Liverpool has been around for a long time. They're historic, just like Kansas City. And recently they've really, come on strong. KC with the Super Bowls, Liverpool with the Champions League and the Premier League. So I like that comparison. I do. And honestly, I was surprised to see Liverpool in particular out of all of them as one of the clubs involved in this. So okay, that made I might have to I might have to reshuffle my list.
That made me feel good about my pick. Last team before you go to the next 6 or whatever, I guess your first 6. I'm trying to see. Okay, you probably have them. So I'll go the 49ers. Do you have the 49ers?
Yes.
Okay. This just plays into a common theme of especially the first couple teams that I mentioned, just legacy history. It's the 49ers, Montana Rice. I mean, Garoppolo Kittle. No. But you know what I mean? The 49ers are, it's just one of those teams.
They're better than other franchises.
Yes.
We are better than you. That's what they want to say to it.
And they have a really rich history. So I think, to be honest, the 49ers might be one of those teams that like is with the Cowboys. Like they're kind of the ringleaders. I think the 49ers might be one of those organizations. So I'll go 49ers.
Okay. I guess I'll say teams that I have that, that you haven't said yet.
Yep.
I have the New England Patriots.
Yep.
They've been known to sort of, they've been known to bend the rules in the past. Let's just say it, to say it nicely. They are not viewed as a very nice franchise by anyone who doesn't cheer for them. And, they have 6 Super Bowls. They have a lot of success. So I think, Bill's saying, hey, Super League, we want to compete with the best of the best every single week. That's I guess the idea behind this. So I have the Patriots in my Super League. I don't know if you had them on yours.
I did as well.
You did as well. Okay.
Yes.
I have both. I'm going to knock two birds with one stone. I have both Los Angeles teams in my Super League.
Okay.
First off, the Los Angeles Rams, they're owned by Stan Kroenke. Stan Kroenke also owns Arsenal. My opinions on this guy is he just cares about simply his pocket. And at the end of the day, the Super League is going to prioritize money and it's going to bring more money in. Los Angeles is a big market. The Rams have been pretty successful in recent years. They have Sean McVay. They have Aaron Donald, 2 of the faces of the NFL. The Chargers are an interesting one because success and the Los Angeles Chargers don't go hand in hand. But the way the ownership has treated this organization in recent years, moving from San Diego, I don't know if you remember, like burning Chargers merchandise and jerseys and signs in front of the stadium when they announced that move. It seems like they haven't had the best interest of their fans in recent years. So I have the Chargers in there too, 2 Los Angeles teams.
Interesting that, I don't have any Los Angeles teams, and interesting that you took this approach. I took it as, yes, obviously the Rams have Stan Kroenke and he's literally doing it in the actual Super League, but part of the Super League's like description is they have the clubs have to have merit. It's not just all about money. The league is all about money, but the teams technically aren't. And to me, LA is a terrible sports town to me, at least in terms of like the people who show up to the games. The Rams, those teams practically play away games. The Rams have been getting better, to be fair, but I push back on the Chargers.
That's fair. To me, the Chargers were like when I wrote them down on my list, I was like, this is an outside of the box way of thinking on it. And you're right. When they moved to LA, both of these teams, it was described as, Los Angeles is a college football hotspot. They're not as well invested in the NFL. If you look at USC, UCLA, like, those games bring a big crowd, but with the NFL, not so much. I believe I've said 3 teams now.
Yeah.
So I'll give you 3 more. I have the New Orleans Saints.
Interesting.
Now this is I understand why you said interesting like that, because historically, and I mean like before, in my lifetime, the New Orleans Saints have always been a good football team. But before that, they were like terrible. And Drew Brees really turned that franchise around. But the reason I have the Saints in there is because in my eyes, they kind of walk with an attitude. And it's exactly what I said with the 49ers is like, we're better than you. They did that. Was it Bounty Gate a couple of years ago? Where the coaches were rewarding their players for going out and injuring other players. To me, that screams Super League. That's the way I've been looking at it. Teams that bend the rules, owners that sort of, care about, the money. And I don't know, I think the Saints would be right in there, especially because of how successful they've been in recent years with, Drew Brees. They've always been in the playoffs. I know they haven't really, they only have 1 Super Bowl, but they've constantly been in that hunt for the Super Bowl in recent years.
So I don't have them on my list either, but I actually have no teams from the NFC South. And a big part of that was I kind of view it as a college football area, like all those cities. And when your football teams are almost kind of second fiddle to the college football teams, I don't think you qualify for the Super League.
Very interesting how we've sort of gone about this in two different approaches. But, I would put them in there. I sort of compare them to, the Manchester City in the Super League where, they don't have the history, but recent backing of money, they've been really, really good. Of course, there's a salary cap in the NFL, so it's different. That's been 4 or 5 teams now that I've said.
That's 5, I think.
Okay. Did we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles yet?
No.
I have them in there. Okay. You look at the Eagles, the fans are incredibly passionate. They're also can be described as awful at times. We know how Philly is. They're like that across every single sports. If you're not performing in Philadelphia, they're awful to you. They just ran Carson Wentz out of town. So I think they'd be one of the teams in for the Super League. Again, they only have the one Super Bowl, so I don't know if you're going to have them on your list, but I just felt like they sort of gave off that vibe as Super League founders, one of the 12.
I'm not going to push back too much. Minutes before we started recording, I was talking to Paolo. You weren't there, I guess, but I took Philadelphia off my list last minute and replaced them with a different team. But okay. They're right on the cusp of being a Super League team.
Right on. I think I'll give you one more, and then I'm pretty sure almost everyone on my list has been covered. I have the Chicago Bears.
Me too.
That's one of the, I talked about, I don't have Green Bay, but I understand the reasoning behind Green Bay, that history. They're one of the oldest franchises. So I have the Bears in there, and they can't seem to please their fans. And I think starting one of these also wouldn't do that. But hey, Andy Dalton as quarterback one in the Super League would be must-watch TV for sure.
Well, here's another soccer. The reason I have them on my list, the soccer comparison, I view them as Arsenal.
Really?
Historic, not much recent success.
I think that's fair.
Right? Okay, so let's just go through. So on my list right now, I have 4 teams that you haven't mentioned. Have you said all your teams?
There is one team that we have not spoken about, but we kind of have. I'll just go ahead and say now. I have both New York teams. I have the Jets in there as well.
Okay, so the Jets would be the last team.
Fact that it's a big market, but other than that, all 12 of my teams have been said. We'll put up a graphic of both of our teams just because we've sort of been flipping back and forth. But yes.
So I have 4 teams left that you do not have. So we had 4 differences. Okay. So this is good. I didn't think there would be this much difference, but so I'll say the first one that I think you missed, and I kind of forgot about them. I put them on. This is the team I replaced the Eagles with. But when I look back, they should actually be one of the first teams on the list, and that's Vegas. Vegas is, to me, that's like they're so Super League.
I really like that, and I'm kind of kicking myself now that I missed them. But yeah, they do.
The new stadium, the Death Star, so they call it. Never seen
Gruden.
Yeah, not a big Star Wars guy. Throwing money at their coach like it's nothing. $100 million coach, throwing money around. They're in the gambling mecca of North America, Vegas. To me, they got to be on there, and I can't believe it took me that long to put them on.
Okay, yeah, I really like that, especially, if they were in Oakland, I don't know. But hey, even when they moved out of Oakland, those fans weren't too happy at all. Mark Davis, the owner, he's a Super League guy. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, he's a big Super League guy.
The next one.
Okay, I'll say this team. I'm honestly not even too confident that they're on this list. And to be honest, the Jets maybe should replace them. But I have the Baltimore Ravens. And the reason I'm kind of doubting this is when I put them on, it was like, they have such a rich history along with, that's kind of been the theme of my teams, is they have to have a rich history. But this is going to really make some Baltimore fans angry. Do you think their history is elevated by the Steelers?
Just because of that rivalry?
Yeah. Like, I think the Steelers almost carry their, the mystique of the Ravens.
It's no secret that they're definitely second fiddle to the Steelers in terms of historic franchise and success. I have a lot of respect for the Baltimore Ravens. I view them as an organization from an ownership and management level that runs the ship pretty well. So if they I would be disappointed to see them affiliated with some of these other teams. I don't know. It's an interesting one. They definitely wouldn't be the ringleaders like the Cowboys.
Yeah.
But I could see them being amongst the top 12.
Yeah, they'd be one of the last teams to join, and then like the Cowboys, they'd recruit them because like you got like one of the flashiest players in the league, Lamar Jackson. So you got to be in this league. Okay, so now we got 2 teams left. Denver Broncos. So I have 3 teams from the AFC West. The Denver Broncos. But you want to talk about well-run organizations, maybe not within like, the last, 5 years, but like they won a Super Bowl not too long ago against the Panthers. They made the Super Bowl, got destroyed against the Seahawks. They have Elway, just one of the most historic teams, one of the best football environments to watch a game on TV. I've never been there in person. Obviously, I'm sure it's great to watch a game there as well, but just, yeah, the Broncos scream history to me. They're one of those teams that I had to put on. They're one of the last teams that I would put on, but I think they make it.
This sort of super league that we're building, of course, a lot of these teams that are historic are still good now. And then you got the Bears with Andy Dalton and the Broncos with Drew Lock just fighting for the basement. And hey, there's no relegation. You get to stay there as long as you want. So yeah, and you know what? I don't hate the pick.
Okay, and then the final team, I had to put them in. It's because it maybe is the best fan base in football, the Buffalo Bills. I had to have them in there. And especially, you know what? If we did this list 3 years ago, I probably wouldn't have them. But because they're also one of the up and coming teams, and Josh Allen looks to be like, potentially a top 5 quarterback. Some people already think that. I put them in there. Bills fans rejoice.
I don't know if Buffalo fits
Fair
the
enough.
bill.
I
like
get,
it's,
yeah.
It's blue collar, how they describe those people in Buffalo. They work hard and they live for the Buffalo Bills. I feel like the notion of smashing tables and getting drunk before the game is just the Super League frowns upon.
Oh, it's frowned upon.
It's just, we're too, buttoned up to be doing stuff like that, even though the Buffalo Bills, they haven't won a lot in their history. Of course, they made it to 4 Super Bowls in a row and lost 4 straight. Of course, I had to acknowledge that. But things are definitely looking up. You got a star like Josh Allen. So there's that. I guess from a team perspective, I'd kind of throw them in. But just I think I look too much into the culture and into the ownership, and you focused a lot more on the team, the team's history and the teams themselves. But hey, I'll say one thing to, I guess, wrap up this segment. It's a good thing that these super leagues are just never going to happen, because I love all 32 teams and I love the current format of the NFL.
One last thing though. Are you happy your team is on this list? Or are you not? Like, should people be happy that their team is included in the Super League?
From your perspective, the way you built it, I think they should.
Okay.
Because you looked at teams that are, historic and we've won a lot. We deserve to be one of the elite. From my perspective, I think I just looked at teams that they give off this aura of greed and arrogance and I'm better than you. And I think we should take our money and not share it with the rest of the teams,
Yeah, yours is kind of a detriment, to one organization. Yeah, fair enough.
Like, I'm not putting the Chargers in there because I think they're some great organization. I'm putting them in there because the way I view their ownership is that, they don't value their fans. And I think that's sort of how I've looked at it in Europe with the soccer. But,
to wrap things up, is there a division anymore just irrelevant than the AFC South?
So before we recorded today, of course, whenever we do these segments, we never reveal to each other who we have, but we always want to make sure that we don't have the exact same list. We do it if we do top 5 power rankings, stuff like that. So Coburn will oftentimes ask me a question that reveals a little bit about my list, but not, he doesn't know which teams I picked. So he asked if I had a team from every division in mind. And I said, there's one division that I didn't pick a team from. I think you had 2 divisions you didn't pick a team
Both
from.
South, AFC and NFC South.
Yeah, I didn't pick from the AFC South. No one wants Jacksonville in the Super League. They can have 53 Trevor Lawrences and it wouldn't matter. But yeah, there it is. There's your NFL Super League. That's never going to happen. I guess keeping with the theme of European soccer, the Cincinnati Bengals yesterday released some new kits. I don't know if you if you got the chance to take a look at them, Coburn, but
I felt like they came out with new jerseys last year. Did I make this up?
So that did not happen.
Okay, so that was just in my head. Okay, fair enough.
But I will use that to go here. Last season, I don't know if it's because last season was the start of the pandemic and I was home all day throughout the entire, like pretty much from the start of free agency to the NFL draft. But I think there were 7 teams that changed their jerseys last year. I mean, just off the top, the Browns, the Chargers, the Rams, the Colts, did I say the Buccaneers?
No, you didn't.
Like all these teams changed their jerseys last year. And maybe because there was just absolutely nothing to look forward to a year ago, I really looked forward to these rebrands that were dropping. And I think this year the Bengals are the only team that are changing their jerseys. And I mean, the draft's in 9 days. Teams must pretty much change their jerseys before the draft because that new prospect is going to be putting on the jersey. So I'll say this, I kind of missed the constant rebrands that we were gifted a year ago, but I like the Bengals new jerseys, new kits.
Yeah. I mean, I like them too, whatever. Do people hate the old Bengals jerseys?
I'll say this about them. I just think the Bengals colors are so nice and their helmet is so cool that there's so much potential. And last year's jerseys, or the jerseys that they've had, I think since 2004, don't complement those colors properly. I think they could have been way nicer than they were. It's like they're wasting potential.
Fair enough. And I think your take about liking the helmet, I find the helmets whatever. I think that's a very unpopular take. I think most people don't like their helmets.
Really? I just thought it was.
I don't know. Maybe
as
his
a
font
young
is perfect.
kid,
he ruined it.
Maybe because he was always using his helmet to end people's career, and now people associate those helmets with that. I just think I remember like being a young kid and first getting into the NFL. Obviously, I grew up being a Dolphins fan, but I think the Bengals, a lot of, especially when you get into just sports in general at a young age, a lot of times uniforms and logos and colors can draw kids in. And I think the Bengals, I really like their colors. So that kind of almost, root for them on the side a little bit. Not that I was a fan or anything, but I just thought it was cool. Their uniform and helmet and everything about them.
Yeah. I mean, when the photos, cause they took photos with the players, whenever they did a big photo shoot. It's just funny seeing the huge scar on Burrow's knee and people are like, draft Jamar Chase. That'll be good.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's funny seeing the scar on his knee. I know what you're trying to say. First of all, I saw the scar and I like, oh my goodness, it's pretty much goes from the top of his knee down to the midway point of his shin. Like it's huge.
Yeah.
I saw one guy on Twitter tweeted and say, I think we all know who the Bengals are drafting now. And it was just a picture of Joe Burrow's knee, pretty much insinuating that they need, get this guy some protection because that can't happen again. I guess that's going to be a huge talk. I think we all know the first 3 picks are going to be quarterbacks. Falcons at 4, whether they stay at 4 or not, and then Bengals at 5 in those new lovely uniforms. That is what is ultimately going to shape the rest of the draft. 9 days away, like we said, to start the show. News coming out today that the Giants, sitting at 11, might want to trade down, which Dave Gettleman has never done in his career. So that's pretty interesting. I think the Giants sitting at 11, I think Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle will be there.
100%.
They signed Kenny Golladay. I mean, both might be there, honestly. They signed Kenny Golladay now. I don't think wide receivers a need. I think the thinking behind that is move down a bit, get a lot for it, and trade with a team that would love a guy like Smith, would love a guy like Waddle.
I don't know the potential of the trade up market right there. It's kind of weird to think about. So the quarterbacks most likely will be gone. Mm-hmm. If not, then fair enough. You could see a team jump up to, they're picking 11, right? Did I make that up? Yeah, picking 11. Okay. You got the Vikings who might look to move up for an offensive lineman if one of the top 2 are there. But then at the same time, if I'm the Giants, take one of those guys.
Yeah.
Like that's a fantastic pick in my opinion. listen, to me, I mean, the Giants, I think we had an episode, maybe, I don't know, maybe 3 episodes back when we basically talked about the Giants and the Cowboys the whole episode. But to me, the Giants you're basically now in win now mode. You got your quarterback on a cheap contract. Hopefully he actually works out. But if you can trade back and still get Waddle or Devontae Smith, I'm fine with that. But if they trade back and then lose out on one of those guys, and it's like, well, now who's left? Maybe you got a couple, an extra second rounder, but it's like, I mean, you want some impact players like day one, ideally, if you're the Giants. So it's a little, it's confusing to me right now, but it all depends on what happens come draft day. I wouldn't like to see them trade it before the draft actually happens and they know who's being picked.
Mm-hmm. I think this year, because we had players who opted out because of COVID, guys that played only 4 or 5 games this year because of a shortened season. I think this year is going to be the biggest sort of discrepancy difference on what the media thinks is going to happen versus what the teams are actually planning on doing. Like, no one knows. I think after pick 10, it just seems like a guy, I'll give you like an example is a guy like Gregory Rousseau from Miami. I think if he could be picked 11th in the draft, and I'd say, okay. And then he could also be picked 32nd in the first round. And I'd say, okay. Like, it just seems like prospects after the top 10 can go in any single, like, it's just impossible to predict. And that's why I wonder, like, what are the Giants planning? What do they want? I personally don't think they really need a receiver because they already have Slayton. They already have Sterling Shepard. Evan Ingram can, he was a Pro Bowler, Evan Ingram, let's not forget. And then, of course, they just gave Kenny Golladay a huge contract. Saquon Barkley is phenomenal as a receiving back as well. So I don't know. I think offensive line would be a slam dunk for them. There's a lot of guys. This is a deep offensive line class. But the opinion on these tackles is so mismatched that it's ultimately down to who's the guy that they want and when do they think they can get him. Yeah,
that's why, like I said, I think trading out before the draft would be a mistake because if they can get one of the top 2, I think that's one of my favorite picks for a team, probably in the whole first round it would turn out to be.
I think there's a scenario where if the Bengals don't take Penei Sewell at 5, we could see him potentially fall. Or, if he only falls to the Lions at 7, if they stay there, or the Panthers at 8, then guess what? You're looking at a Rashawn Slater who's now fallen out of the top 10. He's right there for the Giants. So I agree with you. I think even yesterday I read that the Dolphins are listening to calls about the 6th pick.
They can't make up their mind.
Yeah. First of all, I want to say that knowing the Dolphins and knowing general manager Chris Greer, he's that type of general manager where he will listen to every single call. If the Dolphins had Patrick Mahomes and teams called about him, I genuinely think he would take that call just because he's that guy who believes in value. And if he can get great value for that pick, who knows? He might pull the plug on it. But yeah, you're right. They're trading up. They're trading down. Now they want to trade back down. And then they're going to trade back up. Who knows what's going on there? But any of these teams now, I think we've gotten close enough. You might as well wait till you're essentially on the clock and how the draft's going.
Yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen. But, because, well, who knows? That pick does have potential to become really valuable. Let's say if Trey Lance is available. Chances are somebody probably trades up before then. But, yeah, who knows? Nobody knows anything, really. It's all just speculation at this point.
Yeah, my thinking is the Broncos are sitting at 9. If a quarterback even falls to them, that's going to be, the 5th quarterback taken. And that's it. So I think you have to get above 11. I think they're going to be potentially 5 quarterbacks in the top 10, which is crazy. But moving on, the last bit of news for today is the Pittsburgh Steelers have re-signed Coach Mike Tomlin, have renewed his contract till 2024. If he coaches all the way to that, if he finishes his contract out, I don't know the exact amount of years, but I believe it's 55 or 50 years. So in that time span, the Steelers have only had 3 head coaches, which is incredible.
That's Super League quality.
You're stealing my thunder over here.
That is Super League. Yeah, that's Super League quality hiring. I don't know how much longer Tomlin has there, to be honest. I know they just signed him to an extension, but I mean, obviously there's the possibility that they hit on a quarterback right after Ben, and it's just like another 20 years of Tomlin, who knows? But I think there's a possibility that this could be the last contract he signs. If they don't get the quarterback right and they start to struggle, it's not that it's Tomlin's fault, but I think it might be just time for a fresh voice, new perspective in there. But yeah, I mean, I think he'll finish these 3 years for sure. I don't think he gets fired in the 3 years.
Yeah, we know the defense is good enough to get you that 8-win mark at least. And then it's sort of on to, can Big Ben do the rest? So that's why I honestly don't feel like they're Super Bowl contenders next year, just because we saw the decline throughout the season. This next season is going to be even longer with the 17th game. It's going to be even harder on Big Ben. So I honestly feel a rebuild's coming. I feel a rebuild is on the horizon for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, do you want to enter that sort of complete tear your franchise down and build it up with a new head coach, or do you want to continue to go into that with Mike Tomlin and continue that Tomlin era? I think the Steelers are going to have a ton of questions to answer in the coming years. Part of me feels they're never going to be picking high enough to get a guy like Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, just because of how good that defense is. And I honestly think Mike Tomlin, he's a solid coach. He's proven that, year after year after year, that he is an elite NFL coach. He never has a losing record. He's always getting his team to the playoffs. So even without, even with a struggling offense, they're going to be picking in the draft between picks 15 to 25 year after year. It's very hard to find a franchise quarterback outside of the top 15 picks.
Take every team out of the draft that's going to take a quarterback in the top 10, whatever. I think the Steelers, this is compared to any other franchise, they have the most important draft coming up. They've got a hit on the running back that I think they're going to take one first round. I don't think there's any doubt about that at this point. They got to take a running back. The running back has to hit. They have to retool the offensive line, I should say, because like you said, they're not going to have under 8 wins, most likely. I mean, something would have to really go wrong. Ben's still good enough to be just okay, but not terrible. It's a weird position to be in. I don't know how many times I've kind of compared it to the Bears of a few years ago. Wasting years on defense if you're going to try to just tank. They're in a really difficult spot of, we have this quarterback, but we don't really think he's capable of winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah, and the weird part is, of course, looking at the running back position, they let James Conner go. The run game was just brutal a year ago, and I think we're underestimating a good running back, especially a young running back with not a lot of mileage, can really help this offense and can really help Big Ben. So the question is, do you take Najee Harris in with your first pick, which a lot of people think that's too high for a running back? But if you wait to the second round without a trade up, Najee Harris is going to be gone. Travis Etienne's probably going to be gone. And Javonte Williams, who's viewed as, running back 2, running back 3 in this draft, he's probably also going to be gone as well. It's a very deep offensive line class, but that O-line also needs a ton of work as well. Pouncey retired. Villanueva, I believe, is still a free agent, so they haven't brought him back. There's so many questions that face this Steelers offense, and their defense is elite, but you're going to have to pay TJ Watt probably the biggest defensive contract in the NFL, either this offseason or the next. So it's a big couple of years that face the Steelers. I think it's a good thing that they kept Tomlin at the helm because he's been their leader in recent years, but time will tell what awaits them.
Yeah, and everybody talks about Super Bowl windows. Right now, I think it's closed. I really don't think that, but depending on what happens in this draft, I say you have 1 year, 1 or 2 max years of, you have a shot again.
I think for them to win the Super Bowl, they let Big Ben vacation for the first 9 weeks of the season. Yeah. And then, they go Kawhi Leonard, complete load management on Ben. And then he comes back, he's fresh for week 10, and he's only has to play a 10-game season, including the playoffs. Because I honestly don't think he can go the full the full 17 games plus playoffs at this point.
It also doesn't help that you play in probably one of the best divisions in football.
I think it's the best division in the AFC at least.
Okay,
in the NFC, the NFC
the
West
yeah.
is just, that's a super league on its own.
Yeah. Oh, I think we only had one team. Or no, you had two. You had the Rams, but I only had one team from that division that's in the Super League.
Unbelievable. I honestly, I considered the Seahawks as well, but I ultimately just
leave them out.
Leave them out. You know, why not? Why not leave them out at the end of the day? I think that's all that we have for today. We always like to end on a heater though, so why not? The draft's 9 days away. Let's do our 9-round mock draft, including. No, I'm just kidding. We'll go around and we'll just give one bold prediction for the upcoming draft. Just one thing that we think could very well happen.
Bold prediction for the upcoming draft. All right, it's got to be bold. Oh, I'm trying to think. Do you have a bold prediction on hand? Go first. Yeah, go first.
I think the Washington football team is going to trade up, and I think they're going to trade up big and go out and get Trey Lance.
All right.
That's my bold prediction. I had it on my Monday mock draft yesterday. I had them going up to 4. I don't know if they're going to go up that high, but I think that could be a very real possibility. They only gave Fitzpatrick a 1-year deal, and we saw how, I think in the long run, we're going to see how helpful he was with Tua. Trey Lance is young, hasn't had a lot of experience playing against top-level competition. Very, very raw. He's that guy that, they refer to as a project, not a prospect, but I think his ceiling is through the roof. So I think Washington's a perfect fit. Great defense as well.
All right, bold prediction, whatever. Shot in the dark. Justin Fields goes 2 to the Jets. The Jets, and listen, wait, ready? The 49ers traded up to 3 because Robert Saleh, I almost just said Mo Salah. Robert Saleh is coaching the Jets. There's that connection, and they said, we're taking Fields. And so, we want Wilson. They trade up for 3. They take Zach Wilson.
So this has gone from bold predictions to a complete conspiracy theory. But what better way to end off the podcast by calling Robert Saleh Mohamed Salah, who of course is Liverpool's best player, arguably. And we talked about European soccer and Super League for the good first half hour of the show. What an episode, but that's unfortunately going to be the end. Q&A next week.
I was about to say Q&A, all draft Q&A or whatever you want. All draft
Q&A.
T. Higgins season outlook. I don't know. Whatever you want.
All right. Well, we will promise not to drop the ball on the Q&A next week. We'll be back. Next week will be 2 days before the draft. So look at that. We're getting closer and closer. But that's going to do it all for this week's episode. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get them, make sure to leave a rating. Leave a comment too. I think that's the call to action this week. Leave a comment. Why not?
Leave your Super League. Leave your 12-team Super League.
Leave your 12-team Super League.
Who would make it? And who wins the Super League? Okay. But what qualifies? You win by who makes the most money, not who actually wins. Who makes the most money? During the podcast, we had Chelsea's actually leaving the Super League. Apparently, it's a rumor. So who's leaving? Who's leaving as well? Yeah, let us know. These are the questions we need to have answered. Let us know, and we will see you next week. Have a good week, guys.